Hello, welcome to the finals of the small games tournament between Cpsch2 and Ngober. Both these players fought their way through a group stage and a bracket stage to get here. Both of them finished somewhat in the middle of their groups. Ngober finished tied for second and third in the blueberry group, and CP finished tied for first in the huckleberry group. CP was the 6th seed going into the bracket, and Ngober was the 8th seed. And they were able to both win the quarterfinal matches and their semifinal matches to get here today. So we are playing a first to 3.5 wins, and we will see who is able to come out on top. So looking at this kingdom, we've got some trashing, dismantle, and trading posts. Not the best, but you obviously do want to get thin here if you can. Taxman, I suppose, can also trash treasures. You've got attacks with Taxman and Legionary. If you can get Legionary attack going, that'll be nice. Draw here is going to be the hardest part. There's liveries and wild hunts, but there's no villages, so it's going to be tough to get a lot of actions into play. Silos also seems like it's going to be pretty important. It doesn't seem impossible here that ill-gotten gains could be a strong strategy. I don't know offhand how Silos supports ill-gotten gains. I think Taxman can support ill-gotten gains fairly nicely. I kind of want to open something like Taxman Chariot Race, although that is real tough to get that deck to hit 5 early on. I think this Mantle also is in consideration if you're playing with Silos. The coppers aren't quite as bad. Although, again, that doesn't feel great. It might just be a Silos Silver kind of opening. Trying to cycle through the deck, get to a trading post, start trashing down to a fairly thin deck. And maybe the terminal you want to play with is Legionary. Or maybe you play with a Dismantle early on, get some golds, and then switch to playing with some Legionaries. I don't think we're ever going to get fully clean here, so a little bit more of a dirty money deck seems to make sense to me. Storeroom is +5. I don't think you're going to end up playing with Storeroom here. That seems tough to get to work. Chariot races are going to be sort of decent. If you don't want too many silvers, you can add a couple chariot races, and you can expect to win some of those races because your opponents are going to have quite a few coppers in the state sitting around, especially if you get an early lead on trashing. CP goes with the Taxman. Taxman's a little bit, I think, underrated as a card. I'm not sure, my intuition is it would be fun to play with here. I'm not sure if that's optimal, but certainly it lets you start thinning out those coppers. It can also work in the ill-gotten gains deck where you can Taxman the ill-gotten gains for another ill-gotten gains and get out another curse. As I said, the Silos does interact with the ill-gotten gains somewhat as well, because sometimes you're gaining extra coppers in order to buy another ill-gotten gains, or IG as I'll call it, and then you have a lot of coppers in your deck, and the Silos can help you work through those. Those curses are going to be annoying, although you can deal with them with the trading post. Notably, you can't deal with them with the Taxman, and it's really inefficient to use Dismantle to trash 0-cost cards. It's like a worse version of Trade Route at that point, which is saying something given the relative ranking of Trade Route as a card. So CP goes Taxman Silver, which makes sense, sort of whichever strategy you're pivoting towards. Both those make some sense to me. And Ngober follows. Yeah, Taxman's a little bit more annoying as player too. Although here it turns out that Ngober had a little bit of the better draw with their Taxman. Although they're going to miss a buy here, and probably CP can just pick up Silos here. It's probably the best way to go. Silos is going to be very strong in this kingdom with all the coppers floating around. That's why I almost wonder if Dismantle is decent, because normally dismantling an estate into gold copper is pretty neutral. It's kind of a waste, opportunity waste. But in this kingdom, especially because you have Silos and the gold is a little bit better really with Legionary, it's not completely unreasonable. But especially because CP's got a shuffle coming up with 7 coppers in it, they haven't gotten to trash yet with their Taxman. That seems to me Silos is the best thing for them to buy here. Looks like they're going for something different. Nope, they played all 4. They got a chariot race. The problem with the chariot race at this point is just most of the time you're going to be hitting 0 cost cards. That's all. Like if you discarded the 2 of those coppers, you would have drawn at least another one and gotten through your deck and gotten to play your taxman back around faster. The problem with taxman here is it's somewhat slow at building up payload. Trading post, especially if you can line it up with estates, using something like silos is going to be much faster at getting you back around. And CP would have hit 5 if they didn't have the bad taxman luck. Ngober got a gold on turn 6. That feels a little bit early to me. I think I probably would have gotten a trading post. Oh, did they get a trading post on turn 5? No, they got a trading. They don't have a trading post yet. I would have gotten a trading post there. They want to thin. They want to thin estates still. And the storeroom is not doing very much. I think it's just an extra terminal in the deck. We'll see what they do with 8. Are they just going to go for early provinces? So Legionary here seems pretty decent, although probably I still want the trading post. They got another taxman in a chariot race. It seems like they're over-terminaling themselves. They have 2 taxmen, a storeroom in the deck, and the deck is not so big that it can really support all of that. I also still really want silos, but especially in a hand like this, I think you're happy to take a silver turn to gold because that'll line up with Legionary a little bit better later. And really, you only, in theory, need to get maybe 2 Legionary hits off to make it completely worthwhile. That was actually CP had a 3 cost on top, and Ngober happened to block, which is a little bit unfortunate. But as we've seen these chariot races, we've had a lot of them, and none of them have been won, which is kind of what you expect. Although I expect CP to be able to start winning them once their trading post starts to get into play, because the trading post thins a card. It takes 2 cards. Notably, the trading post takes 2 cards and turns it into 1. The taxman takes 1 card and turns it into 1. So the taxman's not fitting your deck, but it is increasing the average value of your payload. Again, silos here seems really good to me because they still have coppers in the deck, and you never really want to see the coppers. You want to cycle past them every time you see them. And in the best case, discard them when you have trading posts in hand to find the estates. Obviously, next turn probably they'll be discarding coppers and finding estates, but coppers aren't doing very much for you either. They're only 1 money, and they're not going to get you to 8 and hit your really good price points. Yeah, this was going to be an unfortunate hand whether or not they got silos. Discarding 1 copper is not going to do a whole lot for you. Yeah, this is the part of having the taxman early, which is problematic. As you get later in the game and you want to play with other terminal actions, the taxman feels quite a bit worse. So Ngober got the mountain pass, which is quite nice. So I got the province, which triggers the mountain pass, which is quite nice to think about. Obviously, I think it's turn 12. You're taking provinces already. So the question is, how much does one bid here? And they decided that pretty quickly. I would take at least 30 seconds, pretty much any time to think about that. It looks like CP bid 12, and Ngober took the debt at 13. At first glance, those seem reasonable. I would want to spend quite a bit more time thinking about it. How long will it take Ngober to pay that off? Probably it will take them 3 turns, so they'll miss 3 buys in this deck, which is sort of that you want to force them to miss 3 buys. If they can pay it off entirely in 2 turns and then buy a province on turn 3. In this kind of kingdom, I think that's good. Obviously, there's a lot of theory and thought that can go into some of that. It gets pretty complicated in terms of, in a bigger engine kingdom, right? If they could pay it off in 1 turn, then that would be worth a province, right? But this is not a big engine kingdom. We're not going to be provincing every turn. I think I would have played my Haggler there and gotten gold Legionary. Legionary's got a gold, and if you can get the attack off even just a couple of times, it's going to be pretty good for your chance of winning. As it stands, once you let your opponent take the debt, if they can pay off the debt before you catch up on BP, then you're just quite a bit behind. And again, the chariot races are quite sad here. Thinking about it, with Taxman Silver, maybe you just open Silver, Silver silos, try to get another Silver, and then try to get your trading post. Although that's tough discarding the silos, but at least you're getting back around to the Silvers. As this stands, it's quite sad. Not quite sure what to do with SCP here with this hand. The different lines are: you could trash a state, you could play Haggler Silver and buy Dismantle and gain the Chariot Race. Those seem like the two things to do. I know Dismantle's another terminal, but it's starting to become, you're starting to have more things. You can trash the Taxman at this point. You can trash golds even to gain Gold Legionary, that kind of thing. You can also trash gold to gain Gold Duchy in a pinch. They've gone all the way back, so it looks like they're going to go trading post past turn. That's the only thing I can think of that they would be doing here. I'm not quite sure. Yes, they're either buying, they either have 4 money with Haggler in play or trash an estate and end turn. I normally would say trash. I would normally, earlier in the game, I would trash the estate. We're on turn 15 and they're down effectively 2 provinces, so I think they want to play the Haggler and start getting stuff in play. But it looks like they're just going to take the thinning. It's hard to go wrong with thinning in general. As I said, this is the 3rd turn and they're paying it off now. Switching into ill-gotten gains at this late stage of the game, it actually makes a reasonable amount of sense. The Chariot Race pile is really low. Is when you're asking yourself what the 3rd pile is that ill-gotten gains is gonna fire. CP winning some Chariot Races now. If I were them, I would trash the Taxman in the estate and buy a province. The alternative line, if they really want to go into ill-gotten gains, would be to Taxman the Silver into an ill-gotten gains and buy an ill-gotten gains. But that just feels too slow, given that they're behind 13 victory points right now. I think they want to be going for provinces. And they do have the trading post, which can hopefully clean up some of the curses. They're just getting a gold, and they're buying with the 5. One assumes either ill-gotten gains or legionary. Most of the coppers are in the trash. Yeah, so silos is probably not good anymore, so I'm not going to look into that. They can't really support any of the other 5-cost actions. They can't really support the legionary either with the number of terminals, but the effect of legionary is so strong if they can get it to work. The nice part of the Taxman play was they did force Ngober to discard the silver. But if we just take turns piling down ill-gotten gains, then the curse pile is going to be empty, the ill-gotten gains pile is going to be empty, both the decks are going to be worse, and then Ngober's still going to be ahead 2 provinces and be able to buy out the last couple of Chariot Races to win. Which seems like a reasonable plan given their current position. They've also got enough golds that I still like having the Legionary in deck. Yeah, there's also an argument to be made for just opening silver, and then getting trading posts, Chariot Race, or trading posts at silos in your first shuffle, and then switching hard to ill-gotten gains after that. Picking up extra Chariot Races as you can, and in theory your deck should have fewer 1 and 0 cost to your opponent because you're giving them the curses. So with 10 here, Province Gold, okay. Province Gold makes reasonable sense. And Ngober's got 7 and 2 buys.
They're just going for more golds. You know, like the two ill-gotten gains feel a little bit awkward, like each of them having gotten one. It's kind of a strategy I prefer to go hard into, or it doesn't really feel like a situational kind of strategy where you pick one or two up just to mess with your opponent. But they are hitting these weird sort of $5 price points, and not much else to do because they have too many terminals already, which is sort of an argument against having the taxmen and storerooms in the deck. You kind of want your terminals to be the really high impact ones, which here look to be Trading Post Legionary. Haggler is normally very good, but there's not really two things that you can gain with those. So it's not like you're able to gain Smithy Village with your Haggler every time you buy one thing. And CP's at least able to trash this. I guess you buy another chariot race and try to win chariot races since Ngober's not piling down the ill-gotten gains. If they were really hitting the ill-gotten gains hard, I would hold off on their chariot race for piles, but they're just going to hit province here. I mean, I think they're likely to hit province 2 out of the next 3 turns with the amount of treasure they've added to the deck. So it's going to be pretty tough for CP to come back here. Yeah, and that is, for both players, actually pretty unlucky draws, hitting all of your treasures together. CP could try to win a whole bunch of chariot races, but I don't think they're going to win if they don't get both these last 2 provinces. So I think they just buy a province here and violate the penultimate province rule. Playing the treasures like that is reasonable in this case, because they don't want to let Ngober know that all their money was at the top of their deck. But as it turns out, they had 8 in hand anyway, so it didn't matter. Ngober was going to win this game from that spot. I think it was right for CP to buy that province. So overall, good game for Ngober. I thought that the build was a little bit slow there, and they could have done things a little bit differently. But overall, I think Ngober played well, and CP as well. I will see you in game 2.